everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm James, that's Katie, and of course that makes this episode 58 of the Circles and Squares PlayStation podcast. And it's a special one because we recorded in person together a couple episodes ago. And you know what? We were in the same place today and we thought, why the hell not do it again? So here we are. And you can see for video listeners this time, we even have a video feed.
Yeah, there's proof this time. We're not even making excuses for if it sounds weird. There's actual proof.
Yeah, although it might sound weird, just a heads up. We're doing our best, okay? But this is fun. And we don't get to do these podcasts together too often at the moment. So yeah, we're going to have fun doing that. Kate, we have some big news though, just to get off the top of the show, which is that, of course, if you are a regular listener, you will remember we did not have a new episode last week, and that's because we attended our dad's wedding. So we just want to say congratulations to you, Dad and Deb, and we're so happy for you. It was a blast to be at your wedding, and I just felt the love. I don't know. Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those cool things. Not a lot of people get to go to like such big moments for their parents, like a wedding or something like that, right?
Jesus.
Yeah, well, you know, they didn't get to hear that part. But it was just awesome. Our dad's the best, so shout out to him.
Agreed. So just there's that piece of news for everybody. And one other thing to mention just before we talk about anything else on the show today is that unless you're really not paying attention to the news, you will have seen that the U.S. is just an absolute grease fire right now in terms of human rights issues, and there's not a lot we can do. But one thing we are doing is that we do have a new subscription program for our podcast. So if you'd like through Anchor, you can go, and we're doing 99 cent per month subscriptions that you can sign up for. It's just going to go to completely fund our prochoice.org/donate National Abortion Fund. So all the money we raise for the rest of the year from anyone that subscribes will be donated at the end of the year towards that fund. I'm going to match the donation as well, so please get to that if you want, or if you have the ability to do so. It's a great cause, and it's just frankly ridiculous that this is happening, and even anything small we can do, we're happy to do it. So please go look for that link. I'll put it in the description of the show. Anyway, Kate, we're going to talk about some video games now that all that's out of the way, because of course that's what we do on this show. And to start off, we're going to talk about, of course, the games we've been playing. But the second half of today's show is an extremely exciting endeavor. A return to a fun game we played a few episodes ago called Good Listening. If you'll remember the name of the segment. So this time, Kate will quiz me on some video game soundtracks and see if I can remember where these songs are from.
Yeah,
or if I'm just,
you'll do better than I did. I came in pretty cocky, and it was really hard.
It's tough. I don't know how I'm going to do either, but we will find out. But before we get to that, let's talk about video games, because I just beat something really tasty. You might even say it's delicious.
Oh, you might.
It is Cuphead, the Delicious Last Course. And this was the DLC, of course, that just came out for Cuphead a little while ago. I beat Cuphead, I think, was it last year that I talked about it on the show?
Yeah, sometime last year.
I think it was. And you've played Cuphead as well. So this is the DLC for that. It actually came out 5 years after the original game came out. Wow. So we've been waiting a while. But let me tell you, some things are worth the wait, guys, and this is one of them, because Delicious Last Course, phenomenal. I will say hard to go back to just kind of jumping into it, because It is sort of, I wouldn't say it's maybe as easy. None of the bosses in Cuphead are easy, but it's tough to go back and be tossed into these really extreme levels after not playing for so long. Right. So it took me a little while, but man, Cuphead is just unbelievable. It is so detailed. And just controls like an absolute dream, you know, like a game I'll talk about after Trek to Yomi I had some fun with. But one of the things that held that game back a little bit for me was the controls. And in Cuphead, when you're playing, it is just so responsive. Mm-hmm. And everything you do is just so precise. And it needs to be, because of how crazy some of the fights and encounters get.
Exactly. And that's the kind of game too, where it's every single time you die, you're like, oh, I should have jumped earlier, or okay, I didn't dash right, or it's always tangibly what you did wrong, and you can improve and try again with that knowledge. So the game would fail if it didn't feel as good as it did, and by God does it feel good. No,
100%. And what lines up so impressively is it's not just how responsive the controls are, but the animation is just perfect. There's never any visual glitches. Everything is like, it just looks perfect. Like you could watch this game. I still think you could show it to somebody who doesn't know it's a video game and they'll think it's like one of those early 90s kind of like animation style cartoons.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like every game we bring up recently, it's like, oh, it's so gorgeous because games are just getting so beautiful. But Cuphead is one of those games where like you really do need to point out how gorgeous it is, because not only is it of like the insane quality of the visuals, but also just like that art style that nobody else does. And like, you know, like that's probably why it took so long to get a DLC, is like, it's all hand-drawn stuff, right? Like that's not quick, that's not easy.
No, I think that's exactly why, honestly, because I would even say like, you know, just how I remember the first game, that this is even animated to a slightly higher level of like insane detail, like things in the background that you wouldn't notice. Like there was a few times when I was playing a boss, maybe, you know, the 10th, 15th time, because some of these runs can be pretty long, and I'm like, oh man, that in the background is like themed like completely, like I didn't realize that it was. So there's one level where there's like salt shakers in the background, and you just realize that, oh, that has a face on it. Like I didn't realize that was a little character, but it is. And just those types of animations. And you know, the game itself has like this weird sense of humor too, like the way that it plays with some of this. Like there's one level where you fight on the back of a plane, and the level's called Dog Fight, but you're actually fighting dogs are flying the plane, and like they're all dogs that are the enemies. And so you're you know, it's a play on words, and then there's this part where like on the wings of the plane there's these little hatches that open up, and these little dogs come out and throw like tennis balls at you, because dogs will shoot tennis balls. And then when you take out that part of the stage, you're led to believe there's like a dog in the plane running back and forth these little hatches and throwing the balls at you. But then when you take them out, the hatches all open up, and you realize like, oh no, there's actually a different dog that all look the same behind every single hatch. And it's just like, it's just funny, right? And like, it's that slapstick style humor that was kind of associated with those style of cartoons. You know, you think of like Tom and Jerry running into a rake in the lawn and like getting hit in the head. Like it's that type of stuff. And it just fits that theme so well. It was great. And like with the art too, like the credits, I rolled credits last night, luckily, and the credits themselves seem to be like not concept art, but like maybe art that didn't make the final game. Like it's like comic style strips, black and white art kind of going through. And it's just like, I could just look at this for hours. You know, I haven't watched the Cuphead show yet. I don't think you have
there
either.
Is a show, I have not watched it.
But I would be so interested to see what that show looks like. Like, is it, I assume it looks like the game, and like that itself must have been quite an endeavor to.
I feel like that's the selling point of having a show. Because Cuphead, like, you know, it's relatively light on story, I guess you could say, right? Like the characters are cute and fun, but like, you know, who really is Cuphead? Like, what's Cuphead's like moral dilemma?
Yeah, right. Well, Cuphead's the confident one. Mugman's kind of the timid guy.
Now there's a new character with Blast. Of course, as well, right? What's her name? She's like a Chalice.
Her name is Miss Chalice.
Oh, she is a Chalice. Okay, because I've been laughing about the idea of like, oh, it's Miss Chalice, because I think that's stupid. That's actually her name.
No, her name's Miss Chalice, and she's interesting too. So, for those of you that don't know, there is a third character, and they kind of change things up with her. Like, she actually has a different moveset than Cuphead and Mugman, who are carbon copies when you're playing. It just depends which character you like to design. But Miss Chalice is different, and the way you actually get her is she's not actually a character. She's actually more of like a loadout, where to use her, like, you know, so when you're playing Cuphead, you get to pick 2 weapons. You get to pick what super move you want, and then you get to pick like a what are they called,
passive ability or
like
whatever?
like a relic or something, where you get like, oh, an extra health point or something like that. And to get to play as Miss Chalice, you actually need to there's a small bit of story where you like take a bite of a cookie, and she like becomes your character instead of Mugman or Cuphead. So when you play as Miss Chalice, you actually don't get to equip a relic to her, because the relic spot is taken up by this cookie.
Oh, okay.
So she's down a relic, but instead she has some other bonuses where she can actually do a double jump where the other characters can't.
That seems good.
But both of her jumps are smaller. So like 2 short jumps compared to 1 big one. She can also do a difference, which is that so in Cuphead, when you do the counters, you jump, and then if you press jump again when your character's about to hit a pink item, you'll parry it, and that's how you do the parry, and your character kind of goes up. But with Miss Chalice, she actually parries on her dash, so you do a horizontal parry with her instead of the jump one. So I wouldn't say she's easier than the other characters. The other thing is she actually does have an extra hit point than them as well.
Okay.
So you could argue she's maybe easier to play as, but like for me, I actually found her more difficult. And I think it's just because I got so used to playing with Cuphead and Mugman's loadout.
Especially the way that the parries work, because like it becomes like muscle memory to try to like jump on them. And so to like retrain yourself to dash, probably like it would trip you up a bit, right?
I mean, I could have taken the time, and it's not like it's completely different, but and there are probably some stages where I could see it being easier with her, like certain patterns of bosses and different things. You might be like, well, the vertical one probably isn't as useful, and I'm getting launched up when I don't want to, so I'm going to go with Chalice. But by the time I got to see the different bosses, I was kind of already back in the motion of.
Or it's kind of cool if you're playing like multiplayer as well, because you can play that game co-op. So like if one person's Chalice and then one person's like either Mug or Cup, depending on your preference. Then like you're kind of like different characters with different strengths as well, which is kind of cool. Yeah,
so I mean, it just comes down to preference, right? But I've listened to some people's opinions on the game, and some people are like, well, I really love Chalice. Some people prefer the regulars, and it just depends what you want. But so there's that's new, and there's also a couple new guns as well they've added in. One of my favorites, I think my favorite gun in the game, really, like usually I went through the main game just with the homing shot and the spread shot, right? What are you laughing at?
Well, I tried to play the game with just the base gun.
Oh, God.
And it was so hard, but I was enjoying it. And then I got to the dragon and was like, fuck it, and took the spread shot.
Yeah, you can't. I mean,
that's as far as I made it before I gave up on that.
But if you beat the game just with the pea shooter,
I also I didn't buy like literally anything. Like I didn't have like a relic. I didn't have like fuck all. And then I got to the dragon, kicked my ass so many times, I just coupled it and went to the store and I had so much money, just bought the whole store.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, hold that thought just for a second. So the new guns is the crack shot, which is kind of like another homing weapon, except the way that it works, instead of just shooting homing bullets, it kind of shoots like one bullet and it's fairly strong. And if it hits an enemy, it'll just hit them. But if it doesn't hit anything, it'll break and send like another smaller bullet that does home.
I feel like all the bosses have that move, so that's kind of cool to get it back.
It's pretty useful. And then the other gun, which I really liked, was there was kind of a new version of the spread shot, which the regular spread shot has like 5 really short range bullets that kind of go in all directions. This one has just 3. But if you hold down like the stand in place and aim button, they'll begin to be focused all in one spot. Ooh. So it's kind of like a hybrid between spread and like a more focused shot.
Oh, I like that. Cool. That sounds really good.
It's really useful. And then the third new weapon, there's like this one, it's kind of just shoots forward and then the bullets kind of go up a little bit. So it's good for hitting guys above you. Okay. But I never really used that one. I just kind of stuck with the others. But with like Chalice and then these new weapons and stuff, there's a lot of replayability in this game. And I mean, just doing little challenges like you're doing, like you challenge yourself to stick with the pea shooter, right? Like good luck. But I mean, you could do that and you could do any of these bosses with any of these combinations, which is just really cool.
That's cool. So I have a question for you because I'm curious. I haven't actually finished Cuphead. I need to go back and finish it. I just kind of fell into Elden Ring hell. But I'm curious, like, is the DLC, is it like really difficult? Like, is it meant to be played after the game, or is it kind of like parallel to the second half of the game? Like,
it's parallel. It's basically a fourth island, right? Like the game takes place over 3 islands: Inkwell Island 1, 2, 3, and then there's like a final area with the final boss. This is just a 4th island, so you access it from the 3rd island. So I think you're meant to play it like at least when you get to the 3rd island. I don't think you don't have to beat the entire 3rd island. You just have to be able to get down to, there's like a dock on the left and there's a boat that'll take you over. But it's not like necessary to beat the game first. Although I would say like some of these bosses are definitely, I would say, like in the harder section, but it just comes down to like everyone's got different things they're good at, right? Like I know a lot of people struggle with the plane levels. Those are some of my favorites.
Yeah, me too, actually.
So, but interestingly enough, speaking of level types, this is kind of like the last thing that's different about the DLC is there's actually no run and gun levels in the DLC.
Oh, interesting, because those are definitely the levels that are the least popular, like just overall. Yeah,
so there's no run and gun levels, and they've sort of replaced them. So the DLC itself has 5 bosses, plus there is a secret boss at the end, which I did beat. And was actually like really easy because I figured out a way to exploit it. Maybe I won't share that though. not like a cheat or a hack or anything. I just found like a really good strategy that worked out well.
Yeah. People can ask you. Try it yourself. You can't figure it out. Message James and then maybe he'll share.
But so to replace the run and gun levels, they actually did something which I think you'll really like, which is like parry challenges.
Oh, is it like those ones in the they have those little like catacomb kind of places, and you'd have like those quick little
Wait, catacomb?
What? Catacomb?
Catacomb, everybody.
Castlecomb?
Anyway, they're kind of like that, yeah. So what it is you're thrown into a level. There's 5 of them in this. You have like 5 challenges, and you don't get any weapons. You don't get any loadout stuff either. So like I like to use a lot the way you can make your dash where you go invisible, so it's harder to get hit. You don't have that. Yeah,
that's cool.
And you literally just have to go in and do these parry challenges. So there's one where it's like the first one is a room full of candles, and there's this like giant head that's floating around and lighting them up. And what happens is when you extinguish all the candles, the head turns pink and you can parry it. And you got to do that enough times, and then every time it lights up more candles, so you got to dodge more. And it's just, they really get escalated quite a bit. There's this one later on with this guy, and he's like sharpening a sword, and there's like sparks and different things getting thrown at you. It's just really cool, and I really enjoyed those. They had a level of bullet hell to them, which I found really enjoyable. And the other thing too is like every level in Cuphead is bullet hell, but a lot of times there is like obstacles you can destroy to make it less to dodge if you want to take the time to shoot them. But with these, you have no weapons, so you literally have to like dodge everything. And it's really, really fun. And like I saved a couple clips to my PlayStation where I was just like, fuck, that felt really good. Like I feel like a god for dodging all this.
That's
and so awesome. I had a lot of fun with those.
That appeals to me a lot. Like I didn't hate the run and gun sections, but they were definitely the things that like I was least interested in. But those kind of little challenges were so fun. And if they've expanded on that, like the DLC is already on my list, and like beating Cuphead is something I have to do, but it is rising in priority.
Yeah, and it should too, because guess what, everyone? This DLC is $10. It's
crazy.
$10.
That's so cheap.
We talk about value a lot for a game like Hollow Knight. We always say like, what's $15 or whatever it is, like this full game. Well, I mean, Cuphead, you can get it with the DLC for like $35. Like it is on par with that level of deal, I would say. And so like fully recommend this DLC. Goes without saying. Like this is, I don't know if DLC counts for like Game of the Year contender, but when the Circles and Squares awards come around at the end of the year, like
look, maybe a DLC category will show up.
Maybe it should. I don't know. But I mean, between this and like Death's Door and Citizen Sleeper and a few things, like I've played some good smaller level stuff, you know, like not the AAA. God of War later this year, obviously everybody get hype. But yeah, this has been great. Like I just couldn't recommend it strongly enough. Cuphead is fucking awesome. And I need to go watch that TV show now, which I might start tonight because I'm just in a Cuphead kind of mood.
Yeah, get a nice cup of hot chocolate, make a cup of tea, and sit down for some Cuphead.
Exactly. Okay, so let me tell you about another game that we've been thinking about for a long time.
I'm so jealous you've been playing Trek to Yomi, which is a funny thing to say because I have it downloaded on my computer and I just haven't started.
Yeah, are you allowed to be jealous at that point? I don't know.
Yeah, I still am.
So I played Trek to Yomi, and this was a game I remember distinctly. I think we'd watched one of the showcases. Yeah. And this was shown like around the same time as Sifu. Yes. And we were thinking they were both very similar, like artistic kind of combat focused, you know, indies that are really like have a good parry system, feel good to control, like cool art style, stuff like that. And while Trek to Yomi isn't that, I still really enjoyed my time with it more than I thought, because the game didn't end up getting like blow away reviews, you know, like it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. And so this is the one for those that aren't caught up. It's like set in feudal Japan. It is that really cool black and white art style where everything is like, you know, shaded and it kind of has that film grain going on. It's got some really interesting camera angles, the kind of thing where like the camera is stuck, you don't control it, but sometimes it'll be like completely static, and then you'll go to the next room and it'll have this like pan that it does as you move along the level. And then later they'll go into a building and the camera will move like you can see past the walls of the house. You know, it's like you go from room to room, but like your character goes through the doorway. Just really cool visually. It's so awesome, and like the way that it plays with foreground and background is really cool.
And I watched you just play like a brief section, but the way the camera is in the game is so interesting too. Like it's almost like you as the player, or like it's some like voyeurism going on where like you're kind of watching, but you're always watching through a window or through some kind of like place where like the camera logically would be outside, and so like as you're going you might pass through like a structural beam or like you know, part of the window, and it actually blocks the characters because like you are situated outside, like where physically the camera makes sense to me, and like it's kind of a bold choice to do something like that.
I think it's filmed in a way that's supposed to be very representative of like that style of film. So that's what they're trying to go for. Tsushima does some of it as well, but this is obviously
with
like
the Kurosawa mode.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is filmed like in that style as well.
But this is not like where you can toggle an add-on. Like this is just 100% that. Yeah,
exactly. So it's pretty cool, and like the levels themselves too, like sometimes they're side scrolling, like you can't run around. Then you'll go to the next room and it'll be like a 3D environment where now all of a sudden you're playing like a 3D action game. And then there's even a few levels that are like you're running at the camera, like when the boulder chases you in Indiana Jones or something, or like Sonic Adventure 2 Battle when that truck chases you down the hill. Like there's parts like that. So it really changes up the gameplay a lot and what you're doing, and mixed with the visuals and like these different angles, it's just a visual treat to go through it. And I really enjoyed like looking at the game, and that's a good thing because the rest of the game I think is average. Okay, it's average. The combat, and I think part of it was because we had done this thing where we're like, oh, it's like Sifu.
It's like
not
Sekiro.
It's not like that.
No.
It is. I mean, it feels like it kind of wants to be, but it's just kind of squishy. Like, I just advertised Cuphead to you because it's got this parry type of challenge. Yeah. The parry in this game is not great feeling. It is. There's still some moves where I'm just kind of like, I think this is when I press it,
right?
And it kind of just happens. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I thought I got the timing right on that, and other times I feel like I didn't. And so there's some really interesting sort of sword combos you can do, and there's ways where you can combo and like switch if you're facing left or right when you're on the side scrolling portions, and you get some different projectile moves you can do. You get a lot of different stuff in your kit, but when it comes down to it, I just didn't feel like I really needed to memorize a lot of the different sword combos, because I just sort of found ways that were like, there's only probably 6 or 7 different enemy types in the game, and I just kind of found ways to kill them just using the moves that I sort of got familiar with using, and I just stuck with those. And maybe it's because I didn't push myself to learn a few more combos, but I really didn't think I needed to. And as long as I could sort of get those parry timings reasonably accurately down, which I did, the combat isn't really amazing, unfortunately. And the other thing about the combat too is that you get, and this is my fault because I just wanted to cheese it, but you get this one projectile which is literally like a hand cannon, and it does so much damage that there's a few bosses I don't even know what their moves are because I just shot them and they died.
Dude.
So I use that gun a lot.
There's a Sekiro joke in here somewhere, but I don't want to spoil anything. So
yeah,
if you know, you know.
So there's just that, right? And so the other thing about the game is that it in a bit of a redeeming sense, it does have a better story than I thought it was going to have. Like I really thought it was going to be just kind of like this generic sort of tale, giving you an excuse to go and have these combat. And
right.
And what it really is it's like this guy, you start off the game, you're a kid and you're like learning to be a samurai from your master, and then it flashes forward and then you're on your path of like how you want to live your life as a samurai. And these events kind of happen at the start of the game, and although you can't choose different levels to go to or anything like that, you sort of get to guide what your motivations are. Like, do you want to say you're doing this because of your love interest, or are you doing it because of your duty as a samurai?
Okay.
Or do you want like honor and glory for yourself? And depending, like, there's a few times in the game where you actually have like text boxes that come up and you have to pick like your motivation or your answer, and you get a few different story beats and cutscenes and stuff throughout the game as it goes. So that was unexpected, and I don't know if it adds a lot, but it felt kind of cool, especially since there's like a journal you get where you can read the thoughts of your guy. I forget his name as you're going through, but it adds a little bit of flavor in there, and it actually is like fairly well written in my opinion. So the story was better than I thought it was going to be, even though the combat average, not bad, average. But I mean, that's pretty much all the game is. I don't have a heck of a lot more to say about it. Other than like the levels are the reason to play this. Like if you were enticed by the art style, this game is just worth experiencing as like a piece of art, similar to like what you'd say about Cuphead even too, right? Like there's a percentage of people that are drawn to Cuphead because the art is just so freaking cool. You've never seen something like that. And Trek to Yomi, to a lesser extent, is also very unique. And I liked it. I would recommend it, especially if you have Game Pass.
So you'd recommend it? Yeah, it's like worth playing as a kind of interesting, different experience. The art, the story. and just going in with the expectations of like, it's not gonna be the tight combat game that like maybe the trailers kind of implied it could be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the combat looks better to watch than it does the feeling of it. Like watching the game, there's a reason we thought it was gonna be that type of experience. So good. And I think as long as you were like going in not expecting that, you'll have a fair enough time. And I think it was good. It was good. Well,
for the record, I'm still jealous and I'm going to play it. And I will find out what those bosses do and let you know.
All right. Sounds good. We got one more game to talk about today, which is something that I talked about, I think, another time on the show. And I really loved it, but I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so I played this on your recommendation, actually, and I'm so excited to tell you about my experience playing Unpacking. So I finally bit the bullet and got Game Pass, and this was my first Game Pass game. I sat down, I think it took me 3 hours, and I'm absolutely in love with this game. It is such an example of one of those, like, it's a piece of art, and it tells such an amazing story that could only be told in the medium of a video game. So I won't drown on about it because, you know, we've already spoken about it on the show, but the premise is that the gameplay is, it's kind of like, I guess, like a light puzzle game, if you had to describe it.
It would be perfect to play on your phone.
It would be such a good phone game. But anyway, you just unpack boxes. You move and you unpack boxes. So the first one, you start out, you're like, my first bedroom, great. Like you're a kid at your parents' house. You're unpacking your stuff. You know, you have like stuffed animals you put on your bed, and you have like stuff that goes on your desk, and you have like a little Game Boy. And
so relatable, right?
It's so relatable. And then the next levels are you just keep progressing, and you follow the character through her life in all the different stages of all the places that she moves into, in different circumstances, either alone, with, you know, with various people, in various relationships. And I don't want to spoil it because I think the journey is what's really special about Unpacking, especially if, like, myself, like both of us, for example, like we both moved a decent amount of times with various contexts, right? Like either like with family or like, you know, in a relationship or on your own. And if you can relate to that, this is a very powerful game for that reason. Or even if, you know, you haven't moved a hell of a lot, but just even growing up and you see what kind of stuff she brings with her every single time she moves, and then what kind of stuff, like, you know, is no longer there by the third or fourth move, and it's like that's meaningful as well, right, in its absence. And so it's just a really wonderful game, and I feel like there's no dialogue, there's no story explicitly told to you, but you learn so much about her life based on how her house changes over time. And also, like, you get a sense of like what kind of person she is, you know, like her clothes is like what kind of style she's got, like you see what kind of hobbies she kind of picks up and tries out and what sticks with her. And it was just such like I felt so emotional by the end of it, especially just kind of seeing, like, I don't want to spoil how the game ends because I think it's a really wonderful ending, but just there's a few things with unpacking the last couple boxes of that last house where, like, I honestly think you could cry at this game. Like, it is one of those kind of, it is just beautiful.
I think you said something really smart, which is like it's just so relatable.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we must have talked about it last time, but it's just, I mean, anyone who's unpacked a box, like moving, or like anyone who's really over the age of like 25, you know, like you're probably gonna have lived in a few places, and it's just like you said, having the same items beside your bed all the time. Like I know for me, I can think of 2 or 3 things, and like I've had that since I was 5, and like I still have it. I'm never gonna leave it, but it's not on my bed anymore. It's now like in my closet, but I still put it somewhere. And I still got to find a place for it wherever I go.
Exactly. And so then I guess the only thing to really talk about is kind of like the actual gameplay. It is sort of light puzzle because you unpack things. And at first it's pretty simple because you just have a bedroom. But then as it goes on, you have a whole house with like kitchen, you know, like living room, bedroom, like closet, dinette. You got bathrooms. And so things have to go in logical places. So for example, like your cutlery has to go in the cutlery drawer to some capacity, and your plates need to go somewhere in the kitchen. So you have like flexibility of where everything ends up, and you have a bit of control over like how the layout finishes, but you also you are confined to like logically making the house.
Did you try to put things in weird places at one point? Because I did.
I did. A couple times I just, like, I don't know, I don't have space for this, right? Like, part of the puzzle is having space for everything and, like, fitting it, almost like Tetrising it out where it works. And so there's a couple times you're like, oh, I have no space for this stupid globe. Like, it's on top of the fridge. And you're like, damn it, it's not allowed to go on top of the fridge. And so you have to get a little bit creative. But there's also a couple moments in the game, and I think if anything, I wish there was maybe a couple more of these because they were so impactful when it happened, where part of the puzzle wasn't like, where does this object logically make sense in the house? It's where does this object go based on how she feels about it.
Right.
So there's one level in particular where you have an object and it has kind of gone in the same place every time. Or like there's other objects that are like kind of similar that are all going in the same place. But because of what this one means to her, you have to put it somewhere else. And I remember sitting there and being like, well, like it took me a second before it clicked as to like why it was showing up as like an invalid placement. And then when I figured it out, I was like, holy shit, like this game is amazing. It took it from that like A tier up to S tier because it was like, you really have to kind of connect with the person.
Yeah, I can think of that moment too. I think I had the same struggle. I think that system was great. I would have liked to see more of it too, just to maybe increase like the puzzle of it more. Not that I like. Yeah. I mean, the joy of the game is unpacking. Like on one hand, like
it's almost kind of cathartic too to do the unpacking.
I did find that system a little frustrating at points though. Like I remember clearly there was one time when I just had a lot of pictures that she wanted to put. They were like in her room or something. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that one, like that would look good in the bathroom. You know, just kind of like above the toilet or whatever. Like, you know, and it just wouldn't let you put it there. And it's like, well, that's pretty reasonable. Yeah. Or like there was another time when I think there's like a first aid kit or something, and they want you to put it in the bathroom, but I tried to put it in the kitchen. And it was like, oh, that's invalid. Like, is it invalid? Like, is it? Can you not do that? You know, it's a little rigid to me. Yeah. But it's really rare that kind of thing happens.
The main thing I struggled with was just fitting everything in the little cupboards in the kitchen. Like I'd have a rolling pin. I couldn't for the life of me fit like a stupid rolling pin in there. It's like, what are you even baking anyway? Like, you don't need it. But overall, like, yeah, I think
her roommates are such assholes sometimes. Like they just bathroom when you move in with her roommates.
Oh my god,
like, the third house or something like that. Like they're just, what the fuck? Like, why would you move in with these people? They have like shit all over the counter. They don't even have like one drawer emptied out that she can use. It's like your stuff is wedged in.
You like kind of like put it in. Like, look, there's space for my nail clippers in this drawer. Yeah, like in the other drawer, I can put my hairbrush.
Just ridiculous.
But you know what? Maybe that's another thing people can relate to. I don't think I've ever lived with like really shitty roommates like that, but like,
my God, I hope not.
That is a thing though, right? That's like the situation for a lot of people. So
sure, yeah, yeah. What a great game though. Huge fan. Yeah, huge fan. Yeah, everyone should go play all these games we talked about today. And they've got, you know, Unpacking. How would you say the soundtrack is in Unpacking?
Oh, well, I actually really liked it. I think all the games, now I don't know what Trek to Yomi's soundtrack is, but I imagine it's good because it's an artistic game. But I will say both Cuphead and Unpacking have absolute banger soundtracks.
They do. And the reason I asked you this is because it's time to get into the second part of today's show, which is, in fact, the music quiz, otherwise known as good listening. So for those of you that missed it the last time, what happened was that I picked 5 songs, which I played for Kate on the show, unbeknownst to her. She had no idea what the music was, other than they were from songs from games that she has played before. And so, lo and behold, Kate has now picked 5 songs for me. And we're going to see if I can get any of them right, because last time proved to be quite difficult.
I got like 1 or 2. Like I was so sure I would do amazing because like music is such an important part of gaming for me, but it's just so hard to like recall it on the spot. But so I picked games that you have definitely played, all of these games. And I think they're somewhat iconic songs for the game, but I didn't want to go like too obvious, like Rivers in the Desert isn't going to show up. Right.
So just to clarify, do we say the rule is I just have to get the game that it's from?
So I think if you get the game that it's from, so it's going to be a quiz out of 5, and I think it's a point if you get the game, but you get like a bonus point if you can actually like identify the song as well.
But just like where it's from in the game, not like the name.
Because, I think either,
game or the name.
I think like either or is fine.
Okay, so there's potential actually to score like 7.5.
Yeah, you could score above 5. There are bonus points. All not that it's ever happened before, but it might happen here.
Hey, it might happen. And as we said last time too, feel free to play along with us. Yeah. And if you do, send your answers to us at circlesandsquarespod@gmail.com, because I would love to know how you guys all do, and probably you'll do better than me, so Let's see.
You're on the spot a little
Let's
bit,
see.
so we'll start us off.
Okay, and I will not look.
Do not look.
Since we are sitting together. This could be an easy cheat, but I will not.
This could be an easy cheat, yeah. Keep an eye on the webcam, yeah.
I'm going to just look over here.
Everyone will just tell on webcam, you're just like, oh.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is the first track. We're starting off with a good one.
I can't even look into the camera. I got to look over here.
You can't. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, first track.
Oh, I know what this is. I know exactly what this is. At least I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Oh, do you want to play?
Would you like to play it again?
Well, I'm just thinking for our listener, they might want to vibe a little longer.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you know what?
Next time we'll vibe longer for next time.
We'll do it again.
Okay, so.
See, the problem is you can't play too long because then it gets obvious.
That's true. Okay. All right.
It's a little teaser clip.
You're the one who has to play, so you do know. Now, this one, I will say, I'm going to go on a limb and say that I played a lot of this game. In fact, I played all 3 of the games in this series to completion. This is definitely from Danganronpa. And it is the music. I can't place it. I think it's like at the start of the day when you're sort of getting introduced to like what's going on. Like you'll just have woken up and your character will be like, oh, I better go to the lunchroom to like see what so-and-so's up to. But it's definitely from Danganronpa.
Okay, do you want to have a response to it now, or do you want
No,
all at the end?
All at the end, because if people are playing at home.
All at the end, okay, then you can keep stewing on
That's
it.
right.
So
That's
potentially Danganronpa. We'll move on to music clip number 2.
Oh, God.
This is actually, I think, my favorite one.
Okay,
I love this
that's
one.
tough. I've had a couple different thoughts. Now, it definitely sounds like it's sort of from that sort of desert type environment that games like to use. My first thought was it was something from Signs of Sojourner, which I just played recently. But you know what? It sort of has a Japanese flair to it.
Okay.
And I think this is from Phoenix Wright's Spirit of Justice.
Oh, okay.
So that's
Spirit
one of the
Justice.
That's one of the 3DS. It's Phoenix Wright's where you kind of go to this false like Japanese land.
Okay.
I think. So I'm gonna say it's from that. As far as where it's from in the game, I have no idea. It's from like when you're talking to the person at her palace or something.
Okay. Would you like to hear it one more time? Or would you like to move on?
No, let's move on. Let's move
okay.
on.
So slightly less confident. I think this was the hardest one that I identified. Okay. Number 3.
Oh God.
Would you like it again?
I would love that again.
Okay.
This is from Unpacking, isn't it?
Is
you know what? I said to Kate before the show, I was like, I hope you weren't an asshole and like pick a song from Trek to Yomi because I just talked about it on the show and then I would get it wrong. And I might look like an asshole for suggesting that you actually did do that, but just with Unpacking. But I think this is from Unpacking. I think it's like the menu music or something. I think.
You seem okay. You've gotten some confidence back.
But you know what? That's a total guess, and maybe I just have Unpacking on the mind.
That's true. I might have intentionally tried to trick you.
I just don't have another guess. I gotta stick with that.
All right, interesting. So that's number 3. So this is going to be our second last song. Another one of my favorites.
Okay. Oh God, this is Phoenix. No, it's not. Okay, so you know what gives that away that that's Phoenix Wright? Is the bass line. Like there's that like going on. And so I'm going to say that's Phoenix Wright, but they can't both be Phoenix Wright.
Would I have put 2 Phoenix Wright? They
I don't
could be
think
different
so.
Phoenix Wright games, but
I don't think you'd do that. I think I'm going to say that's a Phoenix Wright game, and that's like a courtroom sequence, and I'll change my other answer to Signs of the Sojourner.
Okay. Would you like to listen to the last one?
Give me the last one.
All right, this is the final one.
Creepy. Can I hear it once more?
Absolutely.
I think this is from The Last of Us Part 2.
Okay.
Because there's some guitar notes in there that seem sort of like that theme. Ooh, there goes Kate's phone, everybody.
That's fine. I need a new one anyway.
I'll say that's from The Last of Us Part 2. And I'll say it's like the menu theme from the start of the game's menu or something.
Okay. Are there any tracks you would like to hear an additional time?
I don't think so. I think I'm good.
So maybe we'll go through them and then I'll play them again and then tell you what they are. Okay. So this is back to the first one.
This is the one I'm most confident.
Yes. So this track is from Danganronpa 1. It is called Beautiful Days, and it is the free time music. When you have a day where you can just do whatever, you hang out with people, do whatever you want.
You give them their little gifts out of the pachinko machine or whatever.
Yes, exactly. This is the first thing I figured when I was doing music. I was like, I need Danganronpa. But I was like, the main theme is just so like obvious.
You couldn't put that. So just to keep score here now, that's 1 point for me. But I did not get the right time.
I think you did get the right time because you were like, oh, it's before in the day before you do stuff, which is it's like kind of the free time.
You're the judge. You can give it to me if you want.
I think so. I think you knew it was like the downtime songs. So I give you a
1.5.
1.5 points.
Yeah,
Off to a good start.
Okay.
So number 2.
I guess I can look now.
Number 2, yeah, you didn't get number 2.
Oh, Death's Door. I would not have.
Death's Door.
Who's Barb? I forget who Barb is again.
Okay, so this is Death's Door, and Death's Door has a phenomenal soundtrack. Like it's so like orchestral, but like in a very like wind instrument kind of way. It's just beautiful, and a lot of like really epic songs. But this one is kind of funny because there's a bard named Barb, and he at one point writes a song about you for like being so like an amazing hero. And so this is the song he writes, and like it doesn't have, the song doesn't have lyrics, but like there's like text that pops up like to go along with it. So I thought this was funny as like this is actually a song you kind of like unlock in
totally
the game.
I did listen to that too. I just couldn't. I mean,
it's a very funny Barb song. So number 3, you were right on the money. It is the Unpacking main theme.
You know what's funny though? I don't think I would have gotten this had you not talked about it on the show today.
Yeah, I agree. I think like it is so like kind of generic indie music.
I feel like had you not talked about it on the show, I probably would have went with like Stardew Valley or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's like generic kind of like relaxing indie music, but I also think that it was just super cute and Unpacking, and I loved how relevant it was. So number 4. This is the Phoenix Wright, Trials and Tribulations. We'll play it.
It's that bass line.
Yeah. So yeah. This one cracked me up because it's the Pressing Pursuit in the trial, but there's like 17 versions of Pressing Pursuit. So this one is specifically the caught variation.
Oh right, because the song like speeds up or slows down depending like what's going on.
So that's like the cool thing about Phoenix Wright is like it conveys so much of like how like it makes it so exciting based on the music, and like as the trial progresses it gets more and more intense, and the music is kind of what like like translates that to the player. And so like I just think the music in Phoenix Wright is so good.
I think that's the same like I was just gonna say like Danganronpa, Phoenix Wright, they're the 2 best visual novels that I've ever played, and part of the reason is because they just get so exciting because of the music.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of those games I think you could almost like play like in the background and not really pay attention to that side, but like these games you have to have full volume at all times.
Especially if you're in the courtroom.
Absolutely.
If you play the courtroom seems muted, you may as well not even play the game.
Absolutely. And so the last one, you were so close. It's the first Last of Us.
Oh. Damn. There was a couple notes of the guitar just at the very end.
At the very end,
where it's like da da da.
So yeah, if you listen to the end of the clip.
those guitar notes right there.
So I specifically like cut it off just to get like the first tiny little bit of that because that's the iconic Last of Us.
Yeah, that's
theme.
smart. That's smart. Had you not put those two notes on it, I think I would have had no chance.
That's what I figured. I was like, it's impossible without it, but also it's too obvious if you listen to too much.
So what's my final score here?
So you did incredibly well. So it's a point and a half for Danganronpa. Nothing for Death Door. You got a point and a half again for Unpacking. Phoenix Wright, I think you get...
I did say in the courtroom.
You did say in the courtroom.
That's,
so
that's
another
again.
1.5. And Last of Us, I'll give you 1.
No, I said Last of Us 2. That's cheating.
Okay, that's cheating.
Don't be so generous.
Okay, so that's 4.5 points.
4.5, everybody. 4.5.
That's pretty good.
Yes.
You are the best listener so far.
Okay, I can't
but also,
wait.
I think my quiz was a lot harder. You put like something from like
It's not my fault. You made me an easier quiz.
You said like Dead Cells on it. It's like, oh fuck, what was that?
Not my fault. Man, I'm looking forward to doing that next time. We will definitely play this again. Let us know how you did. Send us an email at circlesandsquarespod@gmail.com. Just like our listener mail question did for today, although it wasn't actually in the email, it was my friend Dan who asked me a question and I wrote it down. Dan. So thank you so much for this. Kate, would you like to read Dan's question for us?
Yeah, I would absolutely love to. And thanks for, I guess, not writing in, but talking in, Dan. He says, hey guys, love the show. Keep it up. Which 3 game characters would you like to spend a night at the pub with? From Dan. And that's such a fun question.
It's a great question. These are so off the wall, and like I hope people can come up with more questions like this style. You know, like
what's kind of fun about this too is like a lot of the cool characters are like they're cool in games, but like would you really want to hang out with Kratos? Like no, I'm really. So scared of him. So it's kind of interesting to think about it in that way as well.
Right. Do you want to go first or second?
Yeah, so I think I may have narrowed it down to 3, but I've definitely got like a few honorable mentions. But one thing I want to say before we start is I kind of like Googled it as well because like I wrote some things down and then I was just trying to think of more like fun characters. So I was like, I'm gonna Google it, like not to steal from Google, but just to like see what other people had said because I thought it'd be fun. And I went to one Reddit thread and I read this and I was like, okay, that's all I need to know. It's so funny. It was one Reddit thread and it was like, you know, who you'd want to hang out with? Who would you want to hang out with as their video game character? And someone, like one of the top comments was like, I'd hit a bong with Punchy from Animal Crossing.
Punchy.
And so I looked up who Punchy was. He's like some cat with like a weird mustache. And I just thought that was so funny.
Man, some people are so funny. Hey, like
what a thing to say. So I didn't put Punchy on my list, but like.
So who's your honorable mention?
So my honorable mention I had to put out. It's funny. Gabe on Twitter replied to us. He said that Arthur Morgan would be a cool one.
Yeah.
And I wrote down, I put Lenny from Red Dead Redemption 2 as my honorable mention because there's that really fun mission where you and Lenny do go get like hammered at the pub and it's just a super fun time. So a shout out to Lenny. And I also put a shout out to the Phantom Thieves from Persona 5.
I don't think they're old enough to drink.
Well, that's the problem. I think they drink a shit ton of coffee, but I don't think they're allowed to drink alcohol. But I think the other thing too is I would want them all as a group. I wouldn't want to just bring one.
Right, they kind of come
them.
as a package deal.
So I thought that's too many. We can't reserve that many seats at the bar. So I shut them down. So the 3 I've ended up with are, in no particular order, Pothead from Death's Door.
Oh, damn, yeah, nice.
Because he's just, you know, his soup of life is just totally on my wavelength, and he's a cool guy. And then I put down Zagreus from Hades, because he's just...
That man needs a drink.
That man needs a drink. He's earned one. He's a cool dude. I considered Hermes, because he's my favorite of the gods from that game. But I just think Zag is like, you know, he's a little bit more youthful. He's less kind of like a bro, like someone like bringing Poseidon. So Zag's a ton of fun. And then my third one is one of my favorite video game characters of all time, Connor from Detroit to Become Human, because I just fell in love with him. But my Connor that
dude would like come around, order a salad and nothing else.
No, but my Connor's cool. He makes jokes. He loves dogs, and he's like really in touch with his like humanity now. So I'd bring my version of Connor. And he come wearing his little toque. He's so cute when he goes out in his toque.
He is, yeah. Hey, that's pretty fun. I'm sure you'd have a good time. Before I do mine, I just want to respond. We had some community members, as Kate mentioned. One of them was our friend of the show, Gabe. the wannabe critic, he wrote he'd like to go with Joel, Arthur Morgan, and Cassandra.
Mhm.
I'm assuming Cassandra from Assassin's Creed Origins.
Mhm.
So that'd be pretty fun. We also had Nick, another friend of the show, hail friend, of course, over at Loud Thumbs. Go check them out. He says Nathan Drake, John 117, Master Chief, and Kratos. So damn.
See, that's like kind of intimidating though. Like, I think Nathan Drake's actually like such a good choice because like Nathan Drake can get along with anyone. But like, does Master Chief? I don't know. Does he talk?
Yeah, he does.
He does. Okay. I just always assume he's just some like soldier that doesn't have time for your shit.
No, he talks. He's like a badass.
Oh, okay.
They'll be like, "Hey, Chief, can you handle this?" He's like, "Just get me a gun." Like, that's the kind of thing he says.
Right. Okay. See, I don't know like what he'd talk about with him.
Well,
like,
I mean, probably guns and killing. I mean, him and Kratos.
Yeah, him and Kratos might get on. That's a good call.
That's true. And finally, we had another friend of the show, Jerry Jansen. Check out his photography, everybody.
Yeah.
He's a great photographer. At Jerry Jansen on Twitter. And he said, he's a big hockey fan, by the way, and he said he'd like to go with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Andrei Vasilevsky from NHL 22. That sounds like a lot of fun for me as well. But I don't know. This is kind of cheating.
That's such a loophole because it's like real people, right? Like, I guess it's all fair game.
Whatever works, right? Sounds fun. And probably the most realistic answer we had.
Yeah, probably the easiest to like make work.
Yeah. Anyway, my answers for this lovely question, I kind of made a trio that would really go together well.
Right.
So I thought, like, okay, who would I want to sit down with, have a drink, from any game? It's Mimir. It's Mimir from God of War.
Such a good
because
one.
he is such a good storyteller.
Yes.
Imagine getting a few drinks in that guy. Like, I don't know if he could drink because he's just a severed head.
Right,
so
where
would
it
it just kind of pour out? I don't
Yeah.
know. He's magic, but he's alive. Like, I'm sure he could enjoy a scotch.
Mhm.
Like, he seems like a bourbon or
He'd
scotch
be like
kind of guy.
like a whiskey sipper. Or
Totally,
something.
yeah. So Mimir, I thought another, like, who would go well with Mimir talking to him about his stories? Well, it's Claptrap.
Oh my god,
from Borderlands.
No, I'm out. Think of how annoying he would be if he had a drink.
Oh, I know. But here's the thing. Like, these two go really well together because, first of all, Mimir doesn't need a chair. So you can get into the bar if the seats are like all kind of taken or there's not a lot of room. You need a smaller table because Mimir doesn't need a seat.
Right.
He can just hang off the side. And Claptrap, he's good to bring too because he's a robot, doesn't eat, doesn't drink. That means when you order pitchers, there's more for the rest of you.
So cheap.
And Claptrap does not need to drink to be a good, fun person, as none of us should. But Claptrap doesn't. And so I thought for my last person, I'm assuming me and Mimir are going to get pretty drunk. And Claptrap doesn't need any. So who's someone else that just needs a drink so desperately and probably isn't that talkative because those other two will not shut up? So I thought Samus Aran would be a good pick. Because she's seen a lot of shit. Like, I just played Metroid Dread. Like, that was a traumatic experience for me. It was probably worse for her. That girl needs a drink, okay? She just needs to relax and just enjoy some funny stories from Mimir. So, Samus, Mimir, and Claptrap will be
You've crafted,
my
I think,
trio.
the 3 least likely things to hang out.
I know, right? But I wasn't thinking in terms of, like,
your
them.
list, but I love Mimir, and I think he's, like, probably the best pick.
I want to lock Mimir and Claptrap in a room with Kratos and Master Chief.
Kratos would kill Claptrap in like 20 seconds flat. Like, he'd just be so sick of everything he said.
100%.
And Mimir would kind of look at him and be like, yeah, I get it. Like, he wouldn't even like give Kratos shit for it.
Mimir would at least know to shut up when he needed to.
Yeah.
Claptrap would just continue talking and dig himself into, like, oblivion.
Very early grave.
Anyway, that was a lot of fun. So thank you, Dan, again for the question. And hey,
Dan, tell us yours. You didn't tell us your 3
tell us
characters,
yours.
so we want to hear yours.
and just like everyone else should too, over at our email address again, as we mentioned before, you can also get in touch with us on Twitter at CNSPod, where we put out all kinds of good tweets, including asking you who you'd like to bring to the bar. So if you follow us there, next time we do listener mail, maybe you can answer in and get your answer read on the show as well. But that's going to do us for today's show. This has been so much fun, again, podcasting in person. So maybe we'll get to do it more in the future. But we will see you all next week back for our news show where we will be talking all about Ragnarok getting a release date, everybody. That's going to be top story.
And Fenrir looks so cool.
Fenrir looks awesome. So you can join us all next week for that. And until next time, we'll see you later.